Alrighty, y'all. My son just graduated from high school. I've homeschooled him his whole school career, and he just graduated and he wanted tres leches cake. So that is exactly what I made for him, and I'm going to show you how I make it. So stick with me and we'll get right to it. All right, I have no doubt there are more elaborate ways of doing this, but this is how I learned to make it, so this is how I'm going to make it. I'm using a regular old coconut supreme cake mix. You can use the yellow cake mix or you can use the white. I probably wouldn't venture into too many other types, but that's what I use for this. And actually this one was just about past date, but so I wanted to go ahead and use it. Otherwise, I might would have used a yellow cake, but anyway, you can use, like I say, coconut, yellow, white, any of them is just fine. And I'm just going to mix this up according to the directions on the box and bake this cake that way first. And then I'll show you what makes it a tres leches cake. All right, so just straightforward cake mix instructions. Dumping in the powdered cake mix. I'm going to be adding 3 eggs and I'm going to be adding a cup of water and a third a cup of oil, or you can use butter or you can use coconut oil, which I have used before. And then once all of that's in there, I'm just going to mix it up. Yes, they recommend that you use a mixer, but I'm not that worried about it, so I'm just using my whisk. So I'm just going to whisk this until it's really well beaten, no lumps, any of that. And I'm going to spray my Pyrex dish, which is the basic cake size Pyrex dish, spray it with some Pam, pour the cake batter in there, and bake it according to directions. But this is the important part. Once it is baked, you're going to take it out of the oven and you're going to let it cool for a little bit before you put the milk on top, the different kinds of milk that are going to soak into the cake and make it so good. So here's the cake, and it doesn't have to be like room temperature or anything. I just don't usually like to pour the stuff on when it's just super duper hot like this. So we're just going to give it a few minutes and then I'll show you the different milks, the 3 different milks that I mix up to make this into a tres leches cake. All right, it's been probably about 30 minutes or an hour or something like that. So now I'm going to start getting the 3 milks mixed up to make this tres leches cake. First, we have the delicious sweetened condensed milk. And you know what? You can do a lot of flexible things with this. You don't have to use the ones that I'm using, but the idea is you're going to just soak this cake in different kinds of milk or cream, and then you're going to cover it with whipped topping and fruit if you want to, and it's just really delicious. So I always use a can of sweetened condensed milk, and you got to make sure you scoop all of that out of there because a lot will stick in the can, but this is a really important part of it. Just scrape all that in there. All right, next I'm going to be using the Carnation evaporated milk. This is an optional thing. With the evaporated milk, I normally use a 5-ounce can, but I didn't have a 5-ounce can, so I'm using half of one of these larger cans. Um, and that's really all that I'm going to need of that. And sometimes instead of using the evaporated milk, I'll use some coconut milk. I've actually used coconut milk before, and if I do that, then I'll also use less of the regular milk, which I'll be adding in just a minute. But in this case, this is going to have a lot of shredded coconut on top, plus it's a coconut cake, and so I don't feel like I need the coconut milk on top of it. It's going to have enough coconut flavor. So then next I'm going to add in milk, and I'm going to get it to just about the 3-cup line, maybe a little past the 3-cup line. Um, and I'm just going to get these 3 milks mixed together really, really well before I pour them over the cake, because you want it to be all mixed up. If you don't, that condensed milk's going to be down there at the bottom and it's just not going to get all mixed in. So just make sure you mix this up really, really well. Bring it all together. It's delicious. It's so good, y'all. I'm going to speed this up real quick just to get this part stirred up before I pour it on the cake, and it's ready. So let me move the cake up here, and I've got to poke some holes in the cake, and I like to use just the end of a wooden spoon, but you can use literally anything, a chopstick, anything you want just to get some holes in it. And you really might not even have to do this. I just do it because I think it makes it easier to get the milk down all through the cake, because otherwise it's going to run off the top and go down around the edges, and then it's going to work its way under the cake. But I just do this. So you poke a bunch of holes in the top of the cake, and then once you've done that, you're going to pour that milk all over the top and just let it soak in the cake. And I do tend to like to pour it kind of slowly just to give it a chance to work down in there. I mean, if you just dump it all out, it's going to make a mess. So just take your time, make sure everything gets coated really good. It just gets down there in all those little holes, lets the whole cake soak it up. And if you feel like you need to add more milk, you can. If you want to add less milk, you can. It's totally up to you. But the whole idea is just to have enough that you're going to get the cake to really soak up these milks, and it's going to be delicious. And then once all of this is done, I'm going to be making a whipped cream topping and spreading it on the top of the cake. And then I'll add shredded coconut on top. Alrighty, if you've watched this channel, you've seen me make whipped cream before. Most recently, I made it for the Atlantic Beach Pie video. I just use heavy whipping cream. If I had to guess, I think I probably use about a cup and a half to make whipped topping for a cake like this, and about 2 tablespoons of sugar, which I add in gradually. So I'm just going ahead and adding in the cream into my bowl here, and I'm going to use my hand mixer this time rather than my KitchenAid, just because I feel like it. So that's what I'm going to do. I like to switch it up. I'm going to speed this video up because it's pretty straightforward making this, but the main thing is you just keep whipping and whipping and whipping that heavy cream until it starts to thicken up and become the whipped cream that you're used to seeing. So let's just watch this at about 10 times the normal speed and see how this turns into whipped cream. I think it's really cool. And it's getting thicker, as you can see. It's starting to get those stiff peaks, and there we go. I just added a little bit more whipped cream in because it was actually getting probably just a little bit too thick. So it's just about ready, and then I'll start spooning it out on top of the cake and spread it out, and then put that coconut on top. I think it's ready. What is not to love about homemade whipped cream, y'all? It is so much better. Cool Whip is not even made of like heavy cream, so I definitely recommend using real whipped cream if you're going to do this. I mean, you can use Cool Whip if you want, but there's just nothing that compares to this. It makes all the difference in the world, so I'd recommend it. And I'm just sort of, as you can see, spooning it out all over, and then I'll get it spread out once it's, sort of dolloped all over the cake. And it doesn't have to be any particular way. You're just wanting to cover it. Some people will put different kinds of fruit on top of this. Some people like to put strawberries, pineapple, mango. In this case, like I said, I'm going to be doing this with coconut. I'm just going to use some of that shredded coconut, which is really good. But it's good with all kinds of fruit toppings, or you don't have to put any fruit topping. It just is totally up to you and whatever it is that you like. You can do something decorative if you want. You can do peaches and blueberries and, any kind of combination that you like. But I can guarantee you this is going to be a hit. And you definitely don't want to just serve it right away when you do this. Just give it a chance for all the flavors to sort of meld together, to let that milk really soak into the cake. So once this is done, I'm going to be putting this in the refrigerator probably for at least an hour or two, just to let it all sort of meld together and let that milk really soak into the cake. And then it'll be ready to serve. All right, let me add the coconut on top. I've just got one of these bags of sweetened coconut flakes, and I'm just going to sprinkle some on top until it looks covered and good to me. If you're using coconut flakes, you can also toast them, but I don't find that necessary. It's just, again, totally up to you. It's just such a pretty cake, y'all. Definitely, definitely good for this time of year when the weather's starting to get warmer and cool desserts are so refreshing and so good. You know what I will recommend though is if you make this, make it to where people are going to be able to eat it quick within like a day or two. This isn't the kind of cake that you want sitting in your refrigerator all week or anything. And I'm not saying that it would, but wait and make this at a time when people are going to be able to enjoy it and just go ahead and devour the thing within a couple of days. Because otherwise, the liquid starts just getting pooled into the bottom of the cake dish and it just kind of gets messy. All right, it's actually been a few hours, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this and get this served up. I cannot wait to get into this. This is one of those things, y'all. You make it and you just have to wait, and it's hard to wait because you just know it's going to be so good. So let me get this served up. And you know what? The first piece you cut out of something like this never looks very, very nice because it's coming out of the corner. But whatever, it's still going to be good, and I think you'll get an idea of what it's like. So um, let me get this and show you. There it is, y'all. It is delicious. I'm sorry for that shadow on there. I can't really help it. It's just the way the light's shining, but you get an idea of what it looks like. And I hope you try this and you let me know what you think in the comments below. If you use different fruit on top, let me know about that. If you make this kind of cake and you make the cake totally from scratch, that's awesome. I've done that before. It's just typically when I make this, I use a box mix because again, that's how I learned to make them when I first learned to make one of these. And it works. It's perfectly fine. So I thank you so much for watching and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.